It's really what we learned about yesterday, but it relates to today's Chumash too. Yankov was afraid when he would encounter his brother Esav, Pen Yavai v'hikani, lest he come and smite me, aim al bonim, a mother on her children. It sounds like he was concerned about one of the particular mothers. Yankov had 4 wives, they were all mothers. Who was the particular mother he was concerned about? And Mefarshim explained he was worried about Leah. He was worried Esav may smite Leah in particular, because Esav was destined to marry Leah. Rashi quotes that everyone, it was rumored throughout the world, and in Sfarim it means that it was really divinely ordained as well, that Lavan had 2 children, 2 daughters, Leah and Rachel, and Lavan's sister Rivka had 2 sons, the older for the older, the younger for the younger. And that's why, according to many, when Yankov came to Haran in the first place, he did not set his eyes upon Leah, because he felt that if Esav would find out that I am trying to take his wife, that will be the last straw on the camel's back. Forget about the brachas, forget about the firstborn, I'm taking his wife too. But ultimately he did marry Leah, and he was worried, how will Esav react to that? Pen Yavi v'hikani, he might smite me for the aim, for one of the mothers, particularly for marrying Leah.
I never knew that's what they mean. That's what
It's a ape shot. It doesn't have to be the shot, it's ape shot.
So why did Lavan mess this up?
Why did Lavan? Well, let's talk about Lavan right now. Join me in number 1.
Wow.
Is a Tosfos. It's a Tosfos in Masechta Kiddushin Daf Nun Beis, where Tosfos quotes a story. Ma'aseh bo lifnei Rabbeinu Tam. A story happened in the times of Rabbeinu Tam, in the 1100s in France. B'bnoi shel harav Reb Oshia Halevi. There's a fellow, Reb Oshia Halevi, shekiddush bas Oshir Echad. The son of Reb Oshia went to a certain wealthy man, and he was mekadesh the fellow's daughter. The Amri said, Bitcha mekudeshes, your daughter is mekudesh to me, stama. So you assume the girls were under bas mitzvah, and the father can marry them off. Or perhaps they were older bas mitzvah and he was their representative, their shliach. Either way, the vort is this Osher happened to have more than 1 daughter. And the son of Reb Oshia, who did the Kiddushin, V'loi pirish ploinus bich, he didn't say which one. You know, there was Bela and there was Yenta, and he didn't say which one. But he gave the money. The father of the girls accepted on their behalf. He married them off. The problem is, which one? Which one? Right? You can't marry both, because a wife's sister carries chorus, and Kiddushin is not effective on a Isur chorus. Can't marry both. The Amar Rabbeinu Tam said, the Mukudeshes, one of them is Mukudesh. Which one? He says, V'loi mi boy, forget about the fact, im shidach ba'achas mem b'shem. If originally they had spoken and they had clearly identified the meduberes, the one they were talking about, v'achar kach kitcha stam, and then he said, this is for your daughter, da'daita dahachi kitcha, obviously the kiddushin is following the original agreement. El afilu loy shidach b'shem, even if they did not specify a name, elo shenisratzu b'peh, but they agreed verbally, v'amar, and the father said, Plonisa eten loch, I'm going to give you sprinzer. Yesh lonu loymar. So also then we will say that even though they only verbally agreed earlier, and at the time of the Kiddushin, he just says stam, still we'll say da'daita dahachi kaddish. He was Mekadesh according to the original agreement. The difference of the second case and the first case is, the first case is not orally, there's actually a piece of paper. The Marsha says we're talking about there was a document, there was a Tanoim. There was Tanoim written. So the Rabbeinu Tam said for sure if there were Tanoim written, even if it was just a verbal agreement, followed by a Kiddushin without details, just your daughter is married to me, we know who we're talking about. Why? The She'edis Yisrael lo yaso avlo, Yidden would never act in a non-straightforward fashion. V'lo yidar b'chazav, they wouldn't lie if they say avart is avart. If we said something, then we're obviously following through with that. V'oid, says Rabbeinu Tam, it goes more than that. Afilu loy pirish nami, even if there was no verbal, explicit mention of which girl. Afilu b'peh, even verbally. Yesh lanu loyme de kiddush hagdayla. We're going to assume that it's the older girl. Mishum deloye asa bim kameinu lasei tzatzeida lefnei abechira. Because of what Lavan told Yankov. Lavan told Yankov that in our place, loye asa kain bim kameinu. Could be he was creating the halacha. That in our place we don't do this to give the younger in front of the daughter. The Beis Halevi Chaim Briska's father learns Lavan was steching Yaakov. He was saying, by you, in your town, you guys play around with who's the firstborn. You think you could buy out the firstborn from your brother. But by us, the age is set in stone. Bim koimenu, by us, we don't marry off the younger before the older. So what's Rabbeinu Tam saying? Like it's a halacha. Because that's what Lavan said, it's azoyizis. And therefore, if someone is Makadish, one of the girls of a certain balabas, you can safely assume it's the older one, even though nobody said nothing.
It seems like Yaakov agreed with him, though.
It seems like Yankov disagreed with him. Yankov originally was planning to marry Rachel for 7 years.
They continued working.
After Lavan fooled him, Yankov knocked on his door and he gave him a chelik. How could you do this to me? Lavan gave him this rationale. Yankov says, okay, well, what am I going to do now? So he said, okay, plan B. He didn't agree with him. By the way, the Mefarshim discussed when Lavan told Yankov, Lo ya'aseh kain bim kaimenu, that he meant to say, take, enjoy. It's one. That Lo ya'aseh kain bim kaimenu, that it's the minig hamakim, I couldn't break the minig. You know, my hands were tied. The community wouldn't let me. The community, I think the Sforno says, others say the community wouldn't have let me go through with it as much as I would have loved to keep our deal and give you Rachel. My hands were tied. Nebuch. No, he pulled out the honest excuse. Continues Taisus. V'harav Reb Menachem Miyuni nechlek alav. He disagrees with Rabbeinu Tam. The Amani says no. Daha havanami kamisha kiddush achas mishtayachiyos. This story of Rabbeinu Tam, it's just like what the Gemara discusses there in Kiddushin Daf Nun Beis. The Gemara discusses if somebody's Mekadesh one of two sisters, without a father. There's two sisters there, right? He throws the ring and he says one of you is Mekudesh. Let's say he throws two rings, right? One's Mekudesh and the other one's just a gift, right? We don't know which sister is Mekudesh. He said one of you. What's the halacha? Abaye and Rav have a famous debate. We spoke about it on Chaf Av by Reb Leivik's. We had a shir about Reb Leivik's Torah. A well-known debate of Abaye and Rav. Because here's the issue. Since you don't know who is the wife, each woman is biblically prohibited. Because each one could be the wife's sister, which carries chorus. Now it happens to be the Rambam holds that all sfeikus, all questionable prohibitions are only rabbinic. The Rambam holds if you have a piece of meat in front of you and you don't know if it's chazer, or if you don't know if it's kosher, minat Torah you're allowed to eat it. This that we say, sfeika deraisa l'chumra, that if it's a biblical question you have to be machmir, the Rambam holds that itself is a rabbinic din. The Chachamim made a din that if you're in a circumstance where it's a 50-50 on a biblical prohibition, you have to be machmir. The Torah itself would allow you to be lenient. The Ravid agrees as well. The Rashba disagrees. The Rashba holds when the Torah says you can't have chazer, it includes even questionable chazer. The Rashba holds when we say that a biblical question you have to be machmir, that's from the Torah's perspective. And that's the halacha, the Alter Rebbe paskins like the Rashba, but the Rambam and the Ravid disagree. However, the Rambam and the Ravid would agree that if you're dealing with a chorus question, then minat Torah you have to be machmer even on a 50-50.
It's a chorus.
It's chorus. By chorus, the Rambam is moida. We have proofs for this, that if it's a 50-50, even minat Torah you have to be machmer. So then everyone would agree in the case of the two sisters that each one is biblically prohibited, because each one is a suffix chorus. So the problem's like this: you're Makadosh, one of the two sisters. You can't consummate the marriage. The Torah does not allow you to consummate the marriage.
Please consummate.
To be an intimacy, because it's a Safek chorus. So Rava therefore says the whole Kiddushin just bounces back. It's a failure. It falls apart because Kiddushin which can't be consummated don't count.
You're saying it never happened.
Right? Nothing happened.
No.
They don't need to get nothing. It's nothing.
The gift is still a gift. He lost the ring. Loses the ring.
No, but no. We hold on. Which one's going to keep the ring?
Yeah.
So each one is a Safek Gneva on the ring. They would have to give it back. They would have to give it back. He could tell each one was for the other one.
Right.
They can't keep it. Unless he's the Moitzi Mechavere. It's a 50-50.
Or if they become shutfim.
It's a 50-50. It's tfisa. The truth is,
If they get back
when
to
there's 50-50 by money, right, we always say leave it where it is. Yeah. The question, that is sumchus. That is sumchus. The moment hamutul besafik over there, the problem is here, he's Bori. He could say, what if he tells us later, I meant that one? The woman herself is Shema. What does sumchus hold if the plaintiff is certain and the defendant is only Shema, Bori v'Shema? What would he say about splitting the money? Anyhow, but I'll call upon him. Let's get back to let's forget about the ring that was a gift. So Rava holds that the whole thing bounces back. There's no Kiddushin, no one needs a get. Abaye says no. Abaye says the Kiddushin take effect. Biblically you can't consummate. The Kiddushin still takes effect. You don't know which one. Each one needs a get. They both need a get. They both need a get. They both can't marry a Kohen. The truth is, according to the Rambam, it could be they might be able to marry a Kohen, because each one's only a Safek Gerusha, and it's only a regular lav for her to marry a Kohen. The Rambam only holds if it's a Safek chorus, biblically you have to be machmer. If it's a Safek on a lav, then biblically you could be makel, but rabbinically they can't marry. Anyhow, I'll call upon him. That's what the Gemara says. So comes Rab Menachem Miyuni and says, wait a second. Rabbeinu Tam's case is practically the same case as the case in the Gemara. And no one said, neither Abaya nor Rava came up with Rabbeinu Tam's chap, that let's assume he was talking to the older sister. It's the same story. It's two sisters. The only difference is there's no father. So it says Menachem Meyuni, Nechlek Lovi disagrees. V'Amr says like this: the case of Rabbeinu Tam is identical. The case of the Gemara when there were two sisters. Just happens to be here. It was the father representing them. Okay, but v'ika divrei Rabbeinu Tam. According to Rabbeinu Tam, why did neither Abaya nor Rava came up with a simple solution? The Hagdolim Mekudeshes. Let's assume it's the older one. Mishum Delo Yosser came bim Kameno because of Lavan's vort. Ze'ena, but no one says it. Loy Rava v'loy Abaya. Because Afilu Abaya de Omar have Kedushin. Rava hold b'chal the Kedushin is nothing. What according to Rabbeinu Tam, it's the older one. Even according to Abaya, it's not like Rabbeinu Tam. Because Abaya says one of them is married, we don't know which one. Lo yarminon elo latzricha get. He said, your machmer, it's Kedushin that they both need a divorce, but Abaya never said, we know that it's the older one, right? Im kein ze namit sorich litin get. So too in the case of Rabbeinu Tam, both of them should need a divorce. How could you say it's the older one? Va'af Rabbeinu Tam choser, but even Rabbeinu Tam was choser, v'loy avad uvda, and did not paskin based on his rationale. So off the bat, the shaila is, well, what was Rabbeinu Tam thinking? It's the Gemara in Kiddushin is a complete. How come Rabbeinu Tam was a Baki in Shas? How come he didn't realize this? His question is discussed in Gemara. And this is one of the most famous Gemaras because this is one of the 6 exceptions where we paskin like Abaya and not Rava. And the Rebbe Leivik explained the whole debate was between Abaya and Rava if there's a level of holiness which can't be, it's not tangible, can't be brought down into the mundane, is it something we reckon with? Rava holds no. Since the Kiddushin can't be consummated, it's nothing. And Abaya was in touch. Abaya lived for 60 years. He's like the dome the round, and Rava was the square, the house. Abaya was in touch with the distant spirituality. So even though it can't be consummated, it can't be brought home, so to speak, the Kedushin is still Kedushin. Anyhow, so the Rosh says that Rabbeinu Tam will distinguish between the two cases, not because one case has the father and one doesn't, but the Lashon that the Chassan uses. In the case of the Gemara, he's dealing with two sisters, and he says, one of the sisters, he says, Achas, one of them. The fact that he says one of you means we really don't know who he's talking about. But in the story of Rabbeinu Tam, the Chassan didn't say one of your daughters. He said your daughter. And that's why we can assume he meant the older one. Okay? So that would be the answer of why the stories are different. Nonetheless, it says Rabbeinu Tam was Chazar Boy. Rabbeinu Tam retracted. V'loy avad uvda. So this is the thing. So, Lavan says a statement, Lo ye asa kain bim kaimenu. It sounds like Rabbeinu Tam wanted to paskin like Lavan. And you wonder, so wait a second, why would you paskin like Lavan and not Yankiv? If Lavan's words have halachic validity, that you're supposed to go with the older one, so what was Yankiv Taka thinking? And Bechal, when it says Rabbeinu Tam was Chazar Boy at the end, and according to Menachem Meyuni, their opinion that we don't know who you're actually marrying, is it because Lavan's Vart has no halachic validity? Or it does? No, maybe no. There is an Indian, the older one has to go first. But that's not enough to clarify which daughter was married. You're dealing with the Issacharites, you're dealing with someone might need a get. Someone needs a get over here, Eishes Ish. So maybe because of the stringency of the discussion at hand about a married woman, so therefore we don't want to rely on the assumption that they would have married off the older. But it could be it's still true that Lavan's minig is a minig. Right, when Rabbeinu Tam was Chazar, but what's the reason? Is it because we're now taking Yaakov's side and not Lavan's side, that there's no such thing about the older sibling? And that's why when someone marries one of the two sisters, we don't know who it is, because there's no telling. Or no, maybe the minig is taka like Lavan. But you can't rely on the minig to paskin a shaila about an Eishes Ish. You have to be worried, but maybe it was the younger one. You're just going to let her marry someone, you're so certain, right? So there's two ways of understanding the end of Taisus. Rabbeinu Tam was Chazar Boy, what's going on over here? The Eir HaChaim asks, forget about Taisus, just asking, wait a second. Lavan had a news flash for Yankiv that by us you have to go according to the order, chronological order, the older comes first. What was Yankiv thinking? So the Eir HaChaim says that Yankiv knew about the minig, but Yankiv thought you can make a condition, a Tanai can work against the minig. And if the father wants to be adamant that he wants the younger one, Zolar Azay Zog, he should say so. And since they made it up, and for 7 years they were going ahead with this deal, and Lavan said nothing, so Yankiv thought, I know about the minig, but we made an agreement against the minig. It's Lavan's discretion to keep the minig or to keep our agreement. He seems to be going along with our agreement to go ahead with Rachel. If it doesn't bother him, it doesn't have to bother me. That's how the Eir HaChaim explains the story. That Yankiv wasn't choylek on the actual minig, but Yankiv thought that if the father explicitly agrees to go with the younger one, it's his call, and it's not the chassan's problem. The chassan can go ahead with it. That's how the Eir HaChaim learns. Please join me. Join me in number 6 for a moment. Join me in number 6. This is from the Sefer Pardes Yosef. He says, V'hinei oid kosher. It's a question. Dahabach v'hashach. We're going to come to this Bach and Shach. Posku, they pasken. The bebeis achim oy achies afal pisha echad godol b'chachma. We'll see what this is about in about 10 minutes. We'll get there. But with two brothers or two sisters, even if the younger one is more intelligent, mikol makom, nonetheless, lo yakdimu lasis nesuin l'kotim b'shanim. You can't go to the younger sibling. Ayin shamsi there. So he asks like this: Lama halacha kadas Lavan. It seems like everyone's passing like Lavan, that you have to follow with the older sibling. Why don't we pass him like Yankiv? Sherot salissa hatzeira. So he asked the shaila: if it is in fact a debate between Yankov and Lavan. Okay, the Orach Chaim learned it wasn't a debate. Yankov agreed there was a minig, but he thought it's up to the father's discretion to follow the minig or to make other arrangements. But if you go without the Orach Chaim and you learn it was actually a debate, that Lavan said there's a minig and Yankov didn't care about the minig, so why would the halacha be like Lavan? And like he quotes a Bach and Shach, we'll see them in a few moments, that they go like Lavan, that if there's two brothers or two sisters, I don't care the credentials of the younger sibling, you always go with the older. Why are we following Lavan and not Yankov? V'rak yesh loimer, so he answers like this. K'moshe kosav b'nachal kedumim, the Chidon, the Nachal Kedumim brings from Rabbeinu Ephraim. The Rachel v'Leah were twins. Now the truth is, it's a clear medrash in the Seder Olam that says this as well, that they were twins. V'Leah nolda tchila. Leah was born first. Achar kach Rachel. We know Leah was older. She was the older twin. But Ayin B'Parshas told us Masha Kosav Hagra mi Vilna. We once discussed the famous psak of the Vilna Gaon. The Vilna Gaon was discussing a story that happened in Vilna.
Shoferet.
Right. The story in Vilna was a guy got married. After a few weeks, he divorced his wife. Unbeknownst to him, his wife was expecting. He marries another woman almost immediately, and she conceives, and she has an early birth. After 7 months, the second wife gives birth. A month later, the first wife gives birth. So the second wife's child was born earlier, but the first wife's child was conceived first. Who is the Bechor to get double portion? And the Vilna Gaon said, you follow conception. Because it says, he learns, this is the story in Parshas Kiseitse. The two wives, a person has a wife that he dislikes, that's the wife that was divorced. Then there's the Ahuva, the one that he loves. The second wife gives birth first. But the Torah says the Bechor goes after the first one, Kihu Reishis Oinoi, because he's the original seed. And the Torah there was talking about the father who wants to give the Bechor to the other son, because the father says he was born first. And the Torah specifically negates such a stance by saying, no, you have to follow Reishis Oinoi. So the Gra Mevilna, now we discussed, Reb Shlomo Kluger asked on that, and the Shoyel Meishiv asked on that. They all asked, that what are you talking about? Yankov and Esav are the same story, because the famous mashal Rashi brings, like the two pebbles in the tube, the one that goes in first comes out last. Yankov and Esav were twins. Yankov was formed right before Esav, and therefore Esav came out first. Yankov was conceived first. Who was halachically the Bechor? Esav. Yankov had to buy it from him. Doesn't that disprove the Vilna Gaon? That was the kasha of Shlomo Kluger asked, and the Shoyel Meishiv. And the answer they give for the Vilna Gaon is, by Yankov and Esav, there was only one mother. There's two types of Bechor. There's Bechor of the father, Bechor of the mother. The one that's Pet Terechem, that breaks through the womb first, is the Bechor to be redeemed by the Kohen. The one that comes from the father first is Bechor Lanachla, to get double of portion. By Yankov and Esav was the only one that was a Pet Terechem. He broke his mother's womb, right? Not Yankov. So therefore Esav trumps Yaakov, because Yankov's Bechor is only theoretical. He was conceived first. But Esav was a real Pet Terechem. In the story in Vilna, though, both of the sons were Pet Terechem to their own mothers. So they're both halachically a Bechor, as far as pidyon from a Kohen, etc. So since they both have a Shem Bechor, then we could say the one that was conceived first is also Bechor for inheritance. Anyhow, but I'll call upon him. The Gra Mevilna says the Hanoilad Rishon, the one that's born first, who are achron liyitzira kamashal d'shveiferes. Okay, this is not so meduyik. This idea, that's not from the Vilna Gaon. That's Rashi. Everyone quotes the mashal of the shveiferes, the one that's born first. You know, it's like going on a bus, right? The one that goes on, you're going first to the back of the bus. You're the last one to come off, right? Uladina and the Gra though said habachar liyitzira. We want to follow the conception, not the lay the ayin sham. Umashakona Yankov abchor. So why did Yaakov buy the bechira? So Tosfos in the Sefer Hadar's Kedim on Chumash says Yankov didn't really need to buy the bechira. He was in essence the bechir. That's like taking the Vilna Gaon's word to the next level. because Taisa seems to say even when there's only one mother, and Esav's the pet Terechem, Yankov was minadin, the firstborn. Rak levaru lefnei ha'olam was only for publicity. Ava be'emes Yankov was the bechor. Now the Vilna Gaon didn't say that. That's taking it to the next level. But it comes.
Every twin for Nachla?
So.
Every twin
Not
now
if they're
has a
identical.
claim.
Not if they're identical. We saw the B'yonis and Abishus discusses. Not if they're identical. If they're identical, you can't say this because then it's one thing would split. The problem was that there are sources that say Yankov and Esav were identical. There's a what?
Mostly they were.
Yeah, the Pashas they weren't. But their voices, the Ramban says it could be their voices were identical, and that's why Yitzchak was not able to detect that it was Yankov who was talking to him. When he says Hakol Kol Yankov, it means the manner of speech, not the actual voice. The voices were identical.
Also, Yitzchak didn't move like the Vilna Gaon, otherwise he would have thought, like the extrapolated.
Well, he didn't know. They didn't know about the sale.
The sale, but
No, because the Vilna Gaon agrees. The Vilna Gaon doesn't go as far as
Not
Taisus.
the Vilna Gaon, the other opinions.
Taisus, Hadar's Canaan. Yeah.
So
The Vilna Gaon himself would agree if there's only one mother, then you follow the first out of the womb. So that's Yitzchak. Yitzchak didn't know about the sale of the
between
Bechor.
Yitzchak and Rivka.
no, the sale I'm talking is different. I'm talking about the actual what happened.
No, so the Vilna Gaon would agree that if there's only one mother, you can't follow the conception.
Who was the other one?
The Taisus goes further to say even by then.
Yitzchak wouldn't hold like Tyson's.
Okay. So here's the thing. V'shaper Yankiv l'shitase. Now what about Rachel and Leah? Rachel and Leah were also twins. Right? Now it happens to be some hold Rachel and Leah were identical. Also their voices were identical, and that's why Yankiv wasn't able to detect the entire night if it was Rachel or Leah, the voices were identical. Although the Medrash Rabbah in Eichos says no, the Rachel had to hide under the bed, the voices weren't identical. But Pashas, the way it's written in
All the lights were put out that night.
Bechlal by Tzadikim, there's no.
Meaning the entire party.
Oh yeah, sure, yeah, the whole
The
wedding.
Sibling was.
Yeah, just in case.
Took the lights out.
The Maharsha learns that Yankov knew Lavan was up to trouble, and under the chuppah, Yankov was Makadasher in case you're Rachel, in case you're Leah. And also that night, because Reuven was born, his Reishis Oini, he was the first Zerah that Yankov, it was from the first night. Now the Gemara says in the Dorim, if somebody's born from a union where there was an exchange of wives, right? The husband thought he was with wife A, turns out wife B. It can have a negative impact on a child.
Echad Masara, one of the 10.
Ken. So why would Eibishter have orchestrated that for Reuven? So Marshal says that the entire night Yankov had al das, whether you're Rachel, whether you're Leah. Why didn't you bother to find out? I don't know. But he says that the Yankov, the Kiddushim was al Tanai, and the whole night was al Tanai in case it's Rachel, in case it's Leah. Anyhow, but but the Medrash Rabbah says Rachel had to speak from under the bed. That means their voices weren't identical. So let's assume they weren't identical twins. But then you have the same. Then you have the mashal of the shveiferes, the mashal of the bus. That means Rachel was conceived first, Leah was conceived second. So Yankov l'shitasa. Yankov agrees to the minig. Yankov tells Lavan, I know that you have to do the older first. I hold that Rachel's older. Because Rachel was conceived first. Especially according to Tosfos, the Hadar's Canaan, who goes further than the Vilna Gaon, who believe that even when there's one mother, you still follow conception. Yankov was emes to Bechor, and so too was Rachel. She says like this, V'shaper Yankov was l'shitase. He thought Rachel was the Bechora against Leah. Because Leah, Nolda Kain, was born first. In Cain, she's latter for the conception. So the idea is what he's saying over here. His shaila was Yankov and Leah, Yankov and Lavan had a machlekas. Lavan said you have to go the older sibling first. Yankov apparently halt nicht azoi. They say that from Chaim Tzanzer, the Divrei Chaim, He once told somebody, "Was happens? You have to go like Lavan, maybe go like Yankov, and just if your younger sibling is ready, your younger child's ready. Why do you have to go like Lavan? Go like Yankov." So that's the shal they're asking over here. Why we'll see the halacha seems to be like Lavan. Why don't we go like Yankov? So the Pardes answer simply: Yankov doesn't disagree. He agrees you follow the older. Punkt by Rachel and Leah in Yankov's world, he felt Rachel was the older one. Because if they were twins and they were not identical, so Leah came out first. Rachel was formed first. She's the Bechor Liyitzira. We mentioned once from the Leiv Simcha of Ger, who says this also explains the story in Vayechi.
And that's why, and then according to that theory, you'd have to say that he only bought the Bechor because he was trying to make a publicity.
That's what he quotes here from Taisus. Yeah.
In that case,
But even without Taisus, sorry.
in that case, if they're not identical twins, why does the older one get double portion?
Last week.
Right. So Lamaisa, when there's only one mother, we don't hold like this Taisus. We hold when there's one mother, the Peter Rechem trumps over the one that was Bechor in conception.
Rabbi, were Ephraim and Menashe twins?
Because one of them has a tangible Bechor, the other one's a theoretical Bechor. The Vilna Gaon only said it in his case when there were two sons of different mothers, so each of them is a Peter Rechem, so then you could use the Bechor Liyitzira to sway the question. We mentioned that in Parshas Vayechi, Yankov is benching Menashe and Ephraim, right? And he switches his hands. The Seder HaDoira says Menashe and Ephraim were twins. You heard the news, they were twins. So Yosef was very worried that his father's going to pull off. Yosef knows exactly what Yankov felt. He's the Bechor, he felt Rachel's the Bechor. He's going to make Ephraim the Bechor. And lo and behold, Yankov does that. Yankov puts his right hand on Ephraim, because it's the same lamdas. Ephraim was born lad, which means he was formed first if they were twins and not identical. So Yosef tries to play with his father's hands, and Yankov responds, Yodati b'ni yodati, my son, I know my son, I know. The Leiv Simcha says what Yankov was telling him, I know exactly that, although Yankov couldn't say, I know Menashe's here and Ephraim's there. Yodati b'ni, I know who they are, but Yodaiti, I have an old opinion about this. I'm very well aware of who's where. I have an old opinion about this. In my opinion, Ephraim actually should be the Bechor. Anyhow, so this would answer that Yankov and Lavan were not in dispute about the actual minhag. So that's why Yankov didn't violate the minhag. And it answers why we pass on like Lavan. Yankov agrees to the minhag. Yankov felt he wasn't violating it. Okay, it's an interesting thing.
Does it play at all that Rachel was born in my son? That doesn't figure in.
The Ramban says by Rachel boy Matzon. The Ramban says why was Rachel tending the sheep and not Leah?
Yeah.
The Ramban learns Leah was a number of years older than Rachel, and Lavan was afraid for Leah to be hanging around the shepherds. They may violate her. But Rachel was young; she wasn't even the parsha of marriage at all. You know, he thought that the shepherds wouldn't even notice her. That's what the Ramban says, which makes it all the more of an issue that Yankov wanted to bypass Leah to get to Rachel. Rachel Bechlal wasn't holding in that chapter of life, and Leah was. That's what the Ramban says. So that even, okay.
Rabbi, who wrote the Seder HaDoros that says the name?
Yechiel Halpern, 300 years ago. It's a collection of, it's a historical work, lots of good stories. It's mostly a historical work, years, trying to get the exact years of every person, and he has lots of paha. Some of his articles, his essays there are big pulpulim to figure out the exact year of when something happened. Look at number 2. Number 2 is the Gemara in Baba Basra. The daughters of Tzlafchad, if you look throughout Chumash, they're mentioned a number of times. In Parshas Pinchas, when they approach Moshe to demand their share in their father's portion, they're mentioned in one order. In the end of Sefer Bamidbar, when they get married, they're mentioned in a different order. So says the Gemara in number 2, Baba Basra Daf Kufchof, Lahalon Monon Akosov Derech Gdulasan. In Parshas Pinchas, when they approach Moshe for a halachic issue, the names are mentioned in the order of wisdom and greatness. When they got married, their names are mentioned in the order of age. The Khan, but in Parshas Pinchas, when they spoke about the inheritance, their Chachmas, and it's the order of their wisdom. Messiah Leila Rabbi Ami, this proves like Rabbi Ami. The Amar Rabbi Ami, B'yeshiva. Rabbi Ami says, B'yeshiva, if you have a get-together, a Torah get-together, Halach Acher Chochma, then it follows the greatness of wisdom. Who sits up the front? It's all the order of wisdom. B'mesiba Halach Acher Zkena, if it's a party, if it's a feast, then respect goes through age. It happens to be that on Sukkot, when it comes to the Ushpizin, there's a well-known debate between the Mekubalim, the Arizal, the Shalah, and others, is the order Avram, Yitzchak, Yankiv, Moshe, Aaron, Yosef, David, or you go chronological, Avram, Yitzchak, Yankiv, Yosef. Now, yeah, for some reason, no one does Aaron then Moshe, but okay, they're the same. Then Beseder, okay, a couple of years, 3 years, Moshe, Aaron, David, and so the Mekubalim have a big debate about it, and the Chassidish Rebbes, the Tzvi Hesh, Mezidachov, and others, they say, because it boils down to this Shiloh over here, this Gemara over here. When the Ushpizim come to your sukkah, is it a Torah gathering or it's a Sudas Yomtiv? If it's a Torah gathering, you go after Chochmah. So then Moshe would have to precede Yosef.
Why?
Moshe?
You know that he was.
Moshe? Why not precede Avram? One of the Yud Gimel Ikrim is that Moshe Rabbeinu is the greatest Navi, not just for those that follow, but even in comparison to those that preceded him. That's Navi. The Gemara in Megillah says Moshe was an Av in Nevi'us and an Av in Chochmah. He was the leader of wisdom. The same way he led in prophecy, he led in wisdom. So then you'd think Moshe should come first. However, what?
Shlomo mentions Adam Rishon. He's Abba Chachma should mention Moshe Rabbeinu.
Or Shlomo.
No. So Shlomo has certain infractions against him. So his actions were not always dictated by his Chochmah. The others were and Shlomo has certain infractions against him, right? The Nach blames him for lots of the Avodah Zarah. With all of his Chochmah, he's not, with all due respect, obviously. But, so there happens to be actually, by the way, an Ora Chaim in Parshas Zois HaBrocha, that the Gemara says in Erchin, if the Eibishter would summon the Ovis to a trial, they wouldn't be able to face judgment. The Eibishter would find them wanting. It says the Ora Chaim, not Moshe. Moshe was so perfect that the Eibishter could judge him from today to tomorrow, won't find any flaw. And that's why Moshe is called Ish HaElokim. Elokim is the Eibishter's Midas Hadin, the Eibishter's virtue of judgment. Moshe was a Ish. He owned it. He owned the Eibishter's Midah of judgment. Moshe was perfect. But there is a medrash that Moshe Rabbeinu thought he had something up on the Avos, and Hashem told Moshe, "B'mokim gedolim al tamud." That's where it comes from. B'mokim gedolim al tamud, that you have to know your place. You can't stand in the place of the Avos.
The message about the end, he says how he's greater.
Yeah, he says, but you also have, right.
Chavar Avdini told them also one time when Moshe complained. He said,
yeah, sure, the emunah, yeah. Right. On the other hand, the fact that Moshe, in Chassidus we say the fact that Moshe asked was because he's from a higher sphere. Moshe is for the sphere of Chochmah. The others are from the Midas. Chesed, Gvur, Avram's Chesed, Yitzchak is Gvur, Yankov's Tiferes. Moshe comes from a higher source, from Chochmah, so therefore Chochmah has to ask.
Yeah.
So the fact that he asked could precisely be because he comes from a higher level. Anyhow, the fact that Moshe was told you can't stand in the place of the others. When I was a bocher in California learning in yeshiva, we once had a big Litvish Rosh Yeshiva who came in. He gave us a shir, and then he said, "Bochrim, b'makom gedolim al tamod." If one day you want to be in the place of the gedolim, you can't stand still. You got to learn and learn and learn, and then one day maybe you'll be in the place of the gedolim. That's how he translated this statement. But the simple reading of the Medrash is that Moshe was told, you got to know your place compared to the others. Each one had something over the other. Right, that's what he mentioned, right. So either way, if the Ushpizin coming to your sukkah is a Yom Tov Milsa Mesiba, then you follow chronological. It's Yosef, and then Moshe, Aaron, David. But if it's Chachma, then Moshe would come first. But upon him, this is the Gemara in Baba Basra. Okay. Look what's the Shaykhis? Yeah, no Shaykhis yet. Look at number 3, right underneath is a tour. It's a tour in Yoreh Day. He says like this: Hayu biyachad chacham shemuflug b'chachma. What if you had someone who was exceedingly scholarly, v'hu bacher, but is very young, and then you have a zokin shemuflug b'skena. You have 100-year-old muflug b'skena, an elderly fellow who chacham ksas. He knows a little bit. Avoloike bacher. He's not like the bacher. There's an 80-year gap between them. But the bacher happens to be, exceptional. So b'yeshiva, if it's a gathering of Torah, of din of halacha shel Torah, holchin achar hachachma, you follow the wisdom. Lohoishiv hachacham habacher b'rosh. This young bacher, he sits up the top. L'daber Chili speaks first. The Rogatchover was once at a gathering, and he was young at the time. He was supposed to speak earlier on. There was an old rabbi there who heard that he is speaking after the Rogatchover. This old rabbi was highly offended. I'm a chief rabbi of this country for 50 years, and this young schnook is going to speak before me. So he went to the organizer of the event, and he said, I don't know who made the order here, but you got to change it around. So the guy says, listen, it's already been said. If the Rogatchover agrees, ask him. If he agrees, no problem. So the old man approached the Rogatchover. He says, between you and me, it's not respectful for you to speak first. I'm 3 times your age, etc. So the Rogatchover says, of course, it's a beferish maimer chazal. It's unbelievable. It says, Amei ha'aretz, ignorant people, the older they get, the more foolish they get. Talmidei chachamim, the older they get, the more their mind settles. Midaiton misyasheves, they get the wisdom. So the Rogatchover says, I'm happy to wait, but you should speak ASAP. You got to speak as early as you can. For me, better off waiting. Okay, a little sharp. But this is the halacha of you taka follow. The Rogatchover should have spoken first. It's a beferish tour. Okay, I would throw in some more stories, but I don't want to keep you here forever. But even then the young man comes first. He discusses later what if it's a tiny different. But if it's a gathering of it's a mishta, a party, or shel nisuin, or it's a wedding. The head table, the older you are, the closer you are to the head table. That's what the Tur says. It seems to be a direct quote from the Gemara in Baba Basra. Here's the problem. Look in number 4. Number right next to it is the Bach. Umashakasav Rabbeinu, that b'mesiba of mishta or marriage you follow the age. Tema, I don't understand, says the Bach. Amai itzrich lefarish shel nisuin. The Tur says if it's a party or a wedding. Why say or a wedding? A wedding wouldn't be a party? Mishta includes, I don't know, whether it's a bris milah, whether it's a pidyon haben, a bar mitzvah, Of course, a wedding. That's the most common. Why did he have to specify marriage tfei more mishar mesibashim than any other get together? Venera says the Bach tahai shel nisun hachipush. You know what the Tur means? He's not talking about a wedding. He's talking about marrying off your children. Im achim ay achios, if brothers or sisters yasu lehem nisuin will arrange a wedding. Afal gav she'echad golden mechaver b'chachma, even though the younger is greater in wisdom, lo yakdimu lasis nisuin nekotin. Don't do the younger one first b'shanim. Don't do the younger one because it's golden b'chachma, even though he's promising and No. El yakdimu lasis nisuin the golden b'shanim. You follow age. Afal pishu kotin b'chachma, even though they're the younger one is greater. Let's say there's 2 brothers. The 23-year-old is working, and the 21-year-old is going to be the next. I don't know. Yeah, he's going to be the next the Rosh Yeshiva of 770, and they're going to hire him tomorrow. He just needs to be married. Too bad. Wait for the older one.
Is this just derech eretz? Is this halacha?
Okay, good. So the box, that's what the Tur means. The Tur means if it's a party or when it comes to marrying off your kids. That's how he learns. This is what it says in Baba Basra, Gabe Benoith Slavchad. He quotes the Gemara, Lahalan Manan Akasav Derek Dulasan. By their marriage, the names are in order of age. The Khan Derech Chachmasan, in Pinchas, it's the order of wisdom. Upirish Rashbam, the Rashbam says like this. The Rashbam is the commentary in Baba Basra there, because Rashi passed away. We only have the first 28 blot from Rashi. Actually, there are those that don't learn Masechta Baba Basra because Ayin Hara Rashi passed away while he explained it, and people don't touch the Masechta. It's not such a joke. It's actually brought in the Knesset Hagdalah brings. Anyway.
Really?
Yeah, and any Masechta that Rashi put, like 5 Masechtas that Rashi passed away in.
Don't learn it?
Kan Mes Rashi. Some don't learn any Gemara at all because they were anyhow. Kishenisu. You know, Bedel Shem Tov says the Gemara says in Yuma, if you're Zoicha, if you're meritorious, then the Torah will be your medicine. If not, it could be a poison. So Bedel Shem Tov says, why are you so sure that you're meritorious? If you're not, it could be a poison. It could be a poison. Okay. All right, let's. Kishenisu b'nois slavchad, says the Rashbam. One of his famous teachings. You didn't see your sefer. Yes. Kishenisu, his famous warning that he has when he sees guys learning. And now Kishenisu b'nois slavchad. When Slavchad's daughters got married, Manan Akasav Derech Gedulasan. Then they're in the order of age. Tichsiv Atiena, Machla, Tirtza, Chagla, Milka, Noya, B'nai Slavchad, Libnei Dedain, they married their cousins Lenoshim. And there it's the order of age, because that's how they got married. Umistabra de Kachnoldu. It makes sense that that's the order of age, because it says, Leia Asa Kain Bim Kaimeno. This is the Rashbam. So the Rashbam, like Rabbeinu Tam, his brother, is using this pasuk for halacha, Losses Hatza'ira Lifnei Bechira. That's why B'nai Slavchad got married in order of age, because you have to. The Khan and in Parshas Pinchas when they stood in front of Moshe, Derech Chachmasan, that was an order of wisdom. Fine. So the Rashbam and Rabbeinu Tam use this pasuk, and to say that that's what happened by Slavchad. Rabbeinu Tam almost wanted to use it to say that you could be sure when someone marries one of the girls who it is. So it sounds like the Bach Paskin's very clear. The Bach seems to be Paskin, you have to follow order of age, based on the Tur. The Shach, on Shulchan Aruch, brings the Bach as well, which means he Paskins the same way. That was the Bach and the Shach we saw in the beginning of number 6. The Bach and the Shach Paskin this way. It happens to be that one of the great Kabbalists, Rav Moshe Zakuta, is quoted in Sforim as disagreeing in essence with Rabbeinu Tam and the Rashbam, that in Padan Aram, where Lavan lived, by Goyim you go after age. But by Yidden, when there's a mitzvah to get married by the men, and even for the woman, she's not obligated to get married or have children, but when she does have children, she does fulfill the mitzvah, she gets a part of her husband's mitzvah, Pru Revu, it doesn't apply to Jews. So Bechlal, apparently Moshe Zakuta disagrees with this entire shir. But Rabbeinu Tam, Rashbam, now even Rabbeinu Tam, we said the fact that in the end he retracted from his psak, we had a shaila, does it mean he negates Lavan or not? The Rashbam definitely goes with it. The Bach understands that's what the Tur is saying. The Shach quotes the Bach. So it seems to be Azoy's the Minig. Is it just a minig, or is it more than a minig? So there happens to be a letter, a tshuva from the Maharsham, Reb Shalom Mordechai Shvadron, who was one of the big Rabbanim over 100 years ago, and he was asked about the following story. And this tshuva is quoted by everyone that discusses this issue. That there was a fellow, Yankel got married to Leah. They had a girl. Leah passes away. Yankel marries another woman, marries Miriam. They have a girl. So the two girls are half sisters. Yankel then passes away, and Miriam married another man, and this other man took in his stepdaughter. And this stepdaughter, when she was 22 years old, She was engaged to some Talmud Chacham from a wealthy family. It was a beautiful thing. Her half-sister was a couple years older, and she said, what's going on over here? Why is my mother marrying off the younger before the older? What happened to Lavan? Lo yasa came bim kameinu. Why is the younger going before the older? So the question came to the Maharsham. And the person that asked the question said, wait a second. In the case of Lavan, it's talking about when the father was alive. Lavan said the minig is not to give. Law says to give the younger before the older. That means it's the father. Here the father had passed away. So to that the Maharsham says, Baba Mai says, don't you know the Rashbam in Baba Basra? B'nai Slavchad had died. There's no father there. And the Rashbam still says the daughter. So that's not an argument. But the guy says, but what about the fact that it's Shas Hadchak? I mean, even if Lachatchila older first, but maybe it's considered Shas Hadchak. So the Marsham writes back, he writes three things.
Meaning the marriage is almost ready?
So the Marsham says like this. Number one, she's already engaged. No one would ever say you should break off the engagement because of Lavan. Right? Even that's what Lavan did. Because unless the child is were they engaged, not engaged. There's a Medrash Tanchuma that for all 7 years that Yankov was working, he was sending gifts every Shabbos, and Lavan took them and gave to Leah. The Medrash Tanchuma says Leah thought that Yankov wanted to marry her. Leah never knew. We had all shit about this last year. Anyhow, but Yankov, it sounds like a chosin gift. Every week you send flowers and flowers and flowers. Till she says, enough flowers! Then you don't send flowers. How come you're not sending flowers? And but that's what the Marsham says. Once there's already a shidduch, you're not going to break the shidduch to go to the. You're not going to do that. Then he says further. He says, "B'chlal, it's not a real isser. It's only a minig." Marsham says clearly it's not a prohibition. It's a custom. So that's a very important shuva the Marsham, because once it's a minig, that's maybe why Yankov thought it wasn't so binding. It's not a prohibition. And more than that, the Marsham says, I agree. It's Shas Hadchak. Why? The older sister was 28 years old. How are they going to keep on waiting? Why should the younger sisters keep on waiting and waiting? And in addition, the younger girl found a beautiful chassan. Who said the chassan is going to be around 6 months from now, a year from now? If you find a good person, you chaparan. So he calls that Shas Hadchak, that if you find a good shidduch, then already you wait, and this guy goes. Who knows if you're going to find someone like him?
But do you sit around
so
and
that
wait
almost
for it to come, or do you go after it?
That's a good question. It sounds like once it comes to your attention, because how could you say it's a Shas Chachak? Let me go for it. I mean, if the Vortish, she's already getting older, she's 22. Those days, 22 was very old, right? So then, how much longer am I going to wait? That itself could be Shas Hadchak. But the idea that Shas Hadchak is she already has a chod, who knows that she's going to find someone like this, it seems like only after it's been discussed already. There wouldn't be a permit to go look. But it would be that if the idea comes up and it makes sense and everything, he opens the door to say that's already Shas Hadchak. So that's a letter of the Marsham. It happens to be that there are many that ask, how b'chlal could you learn from Lavan? The story was before Matan Torah. Usually you can't turn halachas from things which are stated in the Chumash before Parshas Yisrael, before Parshas Boy. For example, Avelus, the fact that Avelus is 7 days, we hold is only rabbinic. It says that Yosef and the brothers said Avelus for Yankov 7 days. So the Yerushalmi says in Moed Katan, that's before Matan Torah, you can't learn halacha. So how could you learn this from Lavan? So there are some that explain like this. We're not really learning a halacha from Lavan. We learn from Lavan that it's disrespectful to the older sibling, right, to jump. That's what you learn. Respect of an older sibling, we know from the 10 Commandments. Kabed es avicha v'simecha. You have to honor your father and mother. You have to honor your older sibling as well. We just learn from Lavan that this is considered honoring. But the real deal is actually from honoring your older sibling. And that's how many places can take it, which opens up a whole new thing, because do you have to honor all of your older siblings? The Gemara in Ksuva says, Kabed es avicha ve'esimecha. The S of the father and the mother include a new spouse. Your father remarries a wife, your mother remarries a husband. The Vav is adding Achicha Hagodol, your older brother. Is it only the older brother? What about the oldest sister? And is it any older sibling? So look at number 7. This is from the Rebbe's Rishimus. The Rebbe has a little vort over here, so we'll just see it. The Rebbe quotes a story. Number 7. Admur Maharash Nishmosa Eden. I had to throw this in because it's juicy. The Rebbe Maharash was sitting. Sheyashav Kol Azman Min Atzad. It's the whole story there. The Rebbe Maharash was sitting next to his brother, Rabbi Yehuda Leib, the Maharil. And Omar, the Maharash, said, B'nichusa, gently, like talking to himself. He said, Der Far trokter langere Hosen. That's why my brother has long pants.
He was older?
Yeah, the Maharil was almost 20 years older, yeah. Und wie Yankov Leib, the Balagola sagt, Yankov Leib, the wagon driver says, Was länger der Rücken, the longer the back, breiter der Hinten, and wider the Tachas, as mehr Pferd is more of a horse. So he's making fun of his older brother. Kishashama Maharil heard the Marash's words. He said, Bizgora Bal Hazonik, you have Hazoy, a chutzpanyak. So the Maharash said back to him, or Kimadaber also like speaking to himself, Ich hab af an S. I, Taka, have to listen to the S, and the Rebbe adds in the middle, the Rabba Sachicha Agadol, to add your older brother. Nirali, Mem is the Rebbe's words. Usually the Rebbe's quoting what he heard from the Friedrich Rebbe. In the brackets, when it says Mem, that's the style of the editor or the author adding their own note. The Marash says, Taka, I have to honor you because S adds Achicha Agadol, your older brother. Now he wasn't the oldest. The Baruch Shalom was the oldest. Aber, but the
There's a difference of opinion if you have to do.
Right, exactly. Right. We're going to see this. So, Aber, but the Marash says, Du Brudurul, you, my brother, Hostaf an S. There's also an S you have to listen to from Rabbi Akiva. The Rabbis Talmidei Chachamim. Fargessen. You forgot about that. Es Hashem Alekecha Tira, Rabbi Akiva says, adds a Talmid Chacham. So there's an S telling me to honor you, but you have an S to honor me. Because you might be older than me, aber ich bin the Talmid Chacham. Now it happens to be in Shulchan Aruch, the halacha is very clear. If a younger brother is more of a Chacham, he still has to honor the older brother. So the Marash is saying, true, there's two different dinim over here. I have to honor you as an older brother, but you also have to respect me. So the Rebbe at the bottom has a footnote. I in Ksuvis Kuv Gimel, look in Ksuvis 103. The Marbinon, we add Kibud Achiv Agodo Mevav. The Vav of Ve'esimecha, the Vav adds your older brother. The Gemara says the
Vav from Ve'es.
The Gemara says Es Avicha and Esimecha are adding your parents' spouses. Your mother remarries, your father remarries. It's the Vav that adds your older brother. But the Rebbe Marash said it's the S. What?
How short is it? Because when you have the Vav stick. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, I don't know. But I'll upon him. So wait a second. That means that why did Rebbe Marash quote the S? The Gemara said it's from the Vav. Right. And he quotes from the Rambam. Umedivrei Soifrim, Shia Adam Chayiv, you Chayiv B'Kovid Achiv Agadol, K'B'Kvoid Aviv, like your father. Well, Bekesef Mishnah of Yosef Kaira there says, the Choshev said, why does the Rambam consider this Medivrei Soifrim? Kiven Doloi Marbin on Ela Midrasha Deva V'Loi Me'es. The Yosef Kaira says, if you learn it from the S, it's biblical. If you learn it from the Vav, it's only the Rabbanon. And so it's a big deal. We actually don't learn it from the S. It's a whole vart of it. According to the Kesef Mishnah, we dafka learn it in the Das HaRambam, at least, since we learn it from the Vav, therefore it's not as powerful as the stuff we learn from the S. So what's the Rebbe Marash saying is from the S? So the Rebbe says, look in Zohar Chelek Gimel, and the Rambam, it's a well-known Rambam in Sefer HaMitzvos in the second Shorish, and Rabbeinu Yerucham, the Girsa there, the Rambam in Sefer HaMitzvos said it's from the S. Es Avicha the Rabbi Sachicha Agadol. So there happens to be actually a big shaila, is it from the Vav or from the S? But then the Rebbe continues, V'yu'uyin gamkein, look in Shulchan Aruch, Yeredesim Reish Mem, look in the Be'er Heitiv, Sivkot and Yud Zayin, that Hagadol is only the oldest. Hainu Harishon, only the oldest, not the second. Even though the second one is older than you. It's from the Halachas Ktanis and from the Shavus Yankiv. It's also Huva Gamkein Begilyon Marsha. Reb Shloime Eger, if you look in the Shulchan Aruch, they all quote and the Pischei Teshuva, they all quote that from the Shvus Yankiv and the Halachas Ketanis, that it's only the oldest. However, the Rebbe says the Chidah disagrees in the Sefer Birkei Yosef. Look there in his Pulpulim, and the Chidah brings from the Arizal that Lav Davka the firstborn, rather anyone that's older. So there's a debate between the Shvus Yankiv and the Chidah.
Stam a discussion between
yeah.
two brothers that have
Shooting all over.
Right. Yeah, because the Marash said S applies to you. First of all, it's a Vav, not the S, and it's only Baruch Shalom, the oldest, not him. So I'll tell you, hold on. So there happens to be. We'll just finish up. So if you say the reason you can't skip the over the olders is because of kavod, so first of all, according to the Shvus Yankiv, it's only the oldest brother. He writes clearly not the oldest sister. The Shvus Yankiv hold it's not the oldest sister, it's only the oldest brother, and it's also only the oldest. So according to the Shvus Yankiv, if the reason of Lavan's din is based on honoring, then it would only apply, you can't skip the Bechor. The Chidah happens to disagree with the Shvus Yankov on both accounts. The Chidah holds it applies to an Achoisoi as well, a sister as well, and he holds it's anyone that's older than you. So according to the Chidah, the din of Lavan, if it's based on honoring, would apply to any older sibling. Whether it's two sisters, whether two brothers, whether it's a younger brother versus an older sister, or a younger sister to an older brother, it would always be an issue because you have to respect, you have to honor. According to the Shvus Yankov, it would be very limited. It would be boys and girls, just to the oldest brother, and that's it. There happens to be another issue. Honoring the older sibling. The Ramban has a famous shaila. The Ramban in his critique to the Rambam Sefer HaMitzvos has a famous discussion. When it comes to honoring your father's spouse, the father's new wife, the chiv is only to honor her while your father's alive. After the father's gone, you don't have to honor her. You have to honor your father even la'achar misa. That's the only thing that are direct to your father. Anything which is an offshoot, since your father, it's nageya him that you respect his wife, so you have to honor her. But it's only an offshoot; it's indirect. It's not your father himself. So it ceases when the father passes away. We had a whole shir about that. Ganze shir. Look on Spotify. Ganze shir. Let's not go there because guys want to go. So the Ramban has a big shayla like this. The Ramban says when it comes to the older sibling, why are you honoring them? Is it because it's negeya your parents that you honor the older sibling? Then after the father or the parents pass, the mitzvah would fall off. But if it's a direct obligation, you have to honor your older sibling, so then it goes forever. So the Ramban's not sure, he has a whole suffix about it. The Ramban, though, seems to say it ends after the father passes. The Rambam disagrees. Because then the Minchas Chinuch points out, the Rambam writes that by your father's wife or your mother's spouse, it ends after Misa. He doesn't write that about an older sibling. Mashma, the Rambam holds it goes forever. So they say it could depend if you learn from the S or the Vav. If you learn from the S, then it would be like your parent's spouse. You're honoring the older sibling because it's negay your parents. Then it wouldn't continue after the father passes or the mother passes. But if it's from the Vav, it's like a new thing. You have to honor your older sibling.
This story was before someone said this? Yeah, before he was the rabbi.
Yeah,
he was
yeah.
Rabbi for a while.
Yeah, before, yeah. He was younger then, yeah. So in other words like this, if the whole reason behind the din is because the younger sibling has to honor the older one, we get ourselves into three debates. One debate is the Shvus Yankov holds it's only an older brother, it's not an older sister. So the whole story of Lavan and Rachel, it wouldn't apply to girls, only to boys. It would apply to a younger girl maybe going over the older brother, which is counterintuitive, but you have to respect the oldest brother. The Chidah holds, no, you have to honor the older sisters. That's one debate. Another debate is the Shvus Yankov holds it's only the firstborn. The Chidah says every sibling. Another debate is the Ramban and the Rambam, what if the parents have passed? According to the Ramban, there's no more mitzvah to honor, so then you could skip. According to the Rambam seems to say the mitzvah of honoring goes forever. So we would end up in all of these debates. It happens to be, and we'll end the discussion with this, but the Rebbe has many letters about this, by the way. The Rebbe discusses what happens if a younger brother, an older brother, or a younger sister to an older sister, or a younger sister to an older brother, or a younger brother to an older sister. The Rebbe discusses all the cases, and the Rebbe discusses about asking mechila. And the most severe is a younger sister to an older sister. You see, a younger brother to an older brother. The younger brother, I have a chiv to get married. I have a chiv pru'uravu, right? I don't wait to go into a sukkah before you because I have a chiv. I don't wait. Did you do lulav and esrog? Let me do it after. I have a chiv. I have a mitzvah. Right. When do we find that by mitzvahs you always let the older one go first? But by the girl who doesn't have a chiv of pru'uravu, that's why it's much more. And the Rebbe speaks about the younger sister has to get a written consent from the older one or orally in front of witnesses. Not by a younger brother and an older brother. But there's lots of, you could check, all the letters are printed.
Otherwise you end up like Yaakov.
What?
Written down.
Father, you do let her do a mitzvah before you, even though you're also
Fine, that's okay. I hear.
If Yaakov would have had love and write it down when he got there, he wouldn't have had a problem.
Oh, you wake up in the morning, you want to eat in the sukkah. You ask your tata, did you eat in the sukkah already?
table. You say you
Both bound to
Yeah.
do it.
Okay, I hear. Let me just finish with a letter of Reb Moshe Feinstein in number 5. So Reb Moshe Feinstein has a very novel take on this.
Both dating, maybe.
And it's not...
Wait.
Okay. Look what he says in number 5. V'hinei pashut lefiani is daiti. Af lechatchila yachol ach tzor lisa isha. The younger brother can go before the older brother. Even though the older brother has not found a wife. Because the younger one, is mechuyev to get married. How is it shaykh shaloye kayim chiyuv? I shouldn't do my chiyuv because my older brother hasn't done it yet. Even though the older brother wants to, it's not like he's sitting in idle. This that he's not mekayim is an oinus because he hasn't found the right girl. Right? It's not like you're the older brother stam kratzing around. Mikol makom, nonetheless, it's not shaykh to say that therefore the younger one should be bottled from his mitzvah for zman bilti yadua for an immeasurable amount of time. The kol shekain for sure sha'isha shenizdamnu l'tzair eina roitze avi isha lachkos. The girl that's fitting for the younger brother, her father doesn't want to wait because he wants sha'chasna tia. The chasna should be before she's 20 years old. You know that.
For the guy's 20.
V'im loy, and if not, yizbato le'inyan. He wants that the daughter should be married. No, it's the chassan. Mishum she'eina roitze b'chassan should be more than 20 years old. The shver doesn't want a son-in-law more than. V'hu shidduch, it's a good shidduch. V'adai eino lov lahafsid inyan chashush lishulza. The younger brother shouldn't give it up for this honor of the older one. People quote the shach in Reishmem, the one that we saw, lesser. The shach says like the Bach, who told Gomer, anyone who quotes the shach and the Bach that we saw in number 4 is making a major error. They don't know what they're talking about. Shach b'shem Bach Iri, you know what the shach and the Bach are talking about. B'sha'im din shnei ha'achim lasis nisuin. If the two brothers are ready to get married, shekvar nishtadchu shneim, they're ready in shidduchim. Va'anidin rak le'inyan covered, who should get married first? Eizens niyasat chila. Shemechadshin, so the chiddush is that they should do the gadol first, even though the younger one is greater b'chachma. Because Shemafarshi, they say gamze b'chlam hashomer abami b'yeshiva, that by a Torah gathering you go past after chachma, b'mesibah by stam party you go after zkena, and the Rashbam says b'mesibah shel mishta hu adin l'nesuin. The Rashbam says also by wedding, the ein hakavana to the sud of marriage, because that's already mesibah shel mishta. Ma lonu b'shvil ma oisem. Why do we care what the mishta is? Why would the Rashbam and the Torah have to say it's a wedding? El apirish that v'hu adin l'maisa nisuin, that is talking about marrying off your kids. V'chein pirish ap loshon atur v'ashulchan aruch mesibah shel mishta oishon nisuin ein shon b'bach sheher. Look at the bach, we saw it already. V'nemar din ze b'yered day. But that's talking about when they're both already in shidduchim. Avo be'im ha'godol ein lo yadayin isha l'se'ena. If the older one hasn't found someone yet, even if the Gadol is also a Talmud Chacham, so the younger one is younger and lesser in wisdom as well, Einat Tzarech Lachkas, he doesn't have to wait Ad Sheyasi until the older one gets married, because even a Ish Pasha shouldn't be bottled from his mitzvah because of the older one's a Talmud Chacham. The gam ha kovid loy shayach ela b'kedima. The kovid is when you want someone to go first. When kishichel and travay alasas, you're both able to go first. Not kishiechad man is not able to do it, and the other one is. And then he says, B'noi Slavchad is talking about the same thing. Nizdamnu l'kul l'milin asim is manecha. B'noi Slavchad, they all found shidduchim at the same time. And therefore they got married according to their age. So this is a big whopper. According to Reb Moshe, the whole din of the Bach and the Shach, the whole thing of Lavan, is only when they're both
Engaged at the same time.
Yeah. And it seemed like that would apply by girls as well. It happens to be that he's not the first one to say this. There was a great Gaon, Reb Shmuel Engel, the Maharash Engel. So he was in the 1800s. He became an orphan when he was 6 years old. His father passed away. So his mother brought him to Tzanz, to Reb Chaim Tzanzer, and dropped him off there. And he spent quite a number of years learning by Reb Chaim Tzanzer. And he used to pride himself that he learned by three of the great Gaonim of that generation. Reb Chaim Tzanzer, Reb Yosef Shol Natanzon from Lvov, from Lviv, from Lemberg, the Shoel Meshiv. And the third one was Reb Shner Zalman Fradkin, the Toras Chesed of Lublin, who was actually a Chabad Chassid, who was a genius, incredible mind. It's interesting because the Rogatchover also once met up with the Toras Chesed, and apparently he was very taken by him, which is interesting because the Rogatchover didn't care too much for his contemporaries. Fradkin, Shner Zalman Fradkin. But the Frierdiker Rebbe once described the Toras Chesed, and he said not only was he a genius in his generation, but he was a Goen even compared to many generations before him. So he was really a standout personality. He used to argue with the Alter Rebbe and the Tzemach Tzedek.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you write any Sfarim?
The Toras Chesed.
Okay.
Actually, in one tshuva, he discusses an issue. He paskins against the Tzemach Tzedek. He doesn't mention him in the tshuva. So one of the Chassidim asked him, the Rebbe says different. He says, since in this Indian I had to paskin against the Rebbe, I didn't want to mention him in the tshuva. I didn't want to mention him and then argue, so I just left him out. Anyhow, so the Maharash Engel, Reb Shmuel Engel, was mamish he learned by these three, and he was one of the greatest minds in the end of the 1800s, early 1900s. And he says the same thing as Reb Moshe. He says his whole discussion is only when both siblings are in shidduchim. But if one, if one has already found their match, and the other hasn't, you don't wait.
Bets are off.
You don't wait, yeah. And this seems, I know many people, they quote this tshuva of Reb Moshe, especially with the Marsham, who said it's not a real issur, it's only a minig. However, the Rebbe does say by two sisters, you need to get a written consent or a verbal consent in front of a...
How can you say it's
Yeah.
a minig only? That's my question, because over here, from this, all the three debates that we had, it seems they all say...
So you should know there's a Taz. The Taz, there is a Taz in Hilchos Ledorim who seems to learn the whole pshat in Rabbeinu Tam, that he was willing to say when you marry one of two sisters, for sure the older one, the Taz seems to learn it's not a halacha. But since that's what people usually do, Rabbeinu Tam wanted to say if you're not sure which sister was married, you could take it to the bank, it was the older one, because azay fit, that's what people do. But not because you have to. Since that's what people do, you can assume that's what happened in his story that happened 800 years ago. So even before Rabbeinu Tam retracted, he never meant it was a halach, it was only a minig.
Learn from S, it's halacha.
No. That you have to honor. You have to honor. The shaila is this mamish considered a break? Especially if you get to, you could get mechila. The Rebbe said you always need mechila. Where no matter now it happens to be that a younger brother and an older sister, the Marsham holds there's no problem at all. Because he's chayiv to get married and the girl isn't. Yeah. So a younger brother to overshoot to older sisters, b'chlal not an issue, because he's chayiv to get married and not her.
What about a younger sister and older brother?
Young's older, the fakir, she has to honor him. She has to honor him. Oldest brother. And not just that, and he is a chayiv, because that's not really her business.
20 or whatever it is.
Shas hadchak. So nowadays, b'chlal, we see it's always, with the shidduch crisis, the whole thing's one big shas hadchak. No, everyone quotes the Marsham, the shas hadchak shiny, and it's easy to make it a shas hadchak. But especially with Reb Moshe, But according to Reb Moshe, though, if neither are involved in shidduchim, you should wait. But according to the Marsham, if at the moment you could label it shas adchak, if the younger one's, the younger one's ready to go out, and you're worried, what if in 2 years she may not be interested anymore? That's also called a shas adchak, right?
Where was he Rosh Yeshiva? Where was he? Fratkin guy.
He lived in Lublin. He was
According to the Rebbe, in terms of forget about the brother and sister in halachic terms. In the
Shkoyach.
Rashi clearly states